G'day, my name is Stephen Lepan. I have been with Agri-Serv as a company since I was a little boy. My father started Agri-Serv in 1998. We specialize in horticultural development and aquaculture now. We do production of tunnels, shade houses, vegetable seedlings, irrigation systems, aquaculture systems, aquaponic systems, as well as fish fingerlings. We started first as a very intensive horticultural facility. We were doing 7 to 8 hectares of very intensive drip. We did peppers, tomatoes, lettuce, a lot of the soft veg like your baby marrows, squashes and stuff like that. We now specialize in seedlings and fish fingerling production as the early point of generating horticultural infrastructure. So the putting in of seedlings for farmers who can have shorter growth field times, they can have faster production of their fields as well, things like that. Agri-Serv has done about 200 projects through Southern Africa for horticulture of developing farms. We built shade houses, we put in irrigation systems for farmers. Our main focus as a company is to develop agriculture and horticulture in our environment that we have here and to make it a successful project for farmers to do. The main things that we like to push with farmers is that because our environment is so harsh and so difficult, we need a system that focuses here in our environment, not something that we can bring in because then we might run into risks from other places. My father was a seeder mentor for 10-15 years, and we learned a lot of information from farmers and saw the difficulties that farmers were having in their environments with, or in our local environment with the infrastructure that was coming in. It wasn't designed to support or for support from our local industries, and we have focused on getting our farmers, local farmers, as much support as possible from what we have available to us in our country. Agri-Serv is currently, to our knowledge, is the largest seedling producer in Botswana. We have facilities to plant 100,000 seedlings an hour, and we can do any vegetable that is locally grown here into a vegetable seedling. Our main thing with the seedlings is to make a seedling that is adapted to our environment, has good root development, good leaf development, and survives our environment. You know, a lot of the seedlings and stuff and fish fingerlings, when you bring them in from outside, you find that they don't handle our environment as well. The conditions are a bit harsh, and they tend to not survive as well or have as good production as they would in a very controlled unit. With the vegetable seedlings, it is all about getting a product out that the farmers can continue to use and have no issues with in their early phases of their life. It also cuts out about 2 months of growing in the field, so the farmers can get more crops in on a rotation if they plan their cropping rotations properly. And with the fingerlings for the fish, it's important that they get a fish that survives in our climatic environment. You know, we want a fish that has a nice strong growth rate, it has a nice adaptability to the feed that it eats, it doesn't get affected too heavily by temperature variations in water. Yeah, those are the main things to focus on with fish. Our fish also has a very medium growth rate compared to some of the really high performing ones, but it has a much hardier system, so it doesn't die as quickly. You get a longer period where you can actually take care of the animal and get it into its growth cycle. The vegetable ban hasn't really affected us as a company, but it has affected our customers. Our customers being all of the farmers in southern Botswana. As much as we can supply, we do supply to them. The vegetable ban has been good for some points, but it has also not been good for other points. The vegetable ban needs to focus on what we can produce locally and still allow them to import what we can't produce locally. There are some things that we can't produce in Botswana. One of those things is like asparagus. Asparagus is a very difficult plant to produce, so it doesn't get grown in Botswana. But because of the vegetable ban, they can't import it. Most of our locally produced vegetables, we have the infrastructure available to farmers in Botswana that they can produce things like our pepper and meet our pepper requirements in our local market and tomato requirements and things like that. As long as it is produced in Botswana, I'm completely for the ban of importing of the vegetables. If it isn't produced in Botswana, I think we still need to work on building that we can produce those things that we don't currently produce here, and then we can shut the market for that. So there has been some benefits and some downsides of the vegetable ban, importation ban, but generally the benefits outweigh the disadvantages that we are currently having. The big thing with the ban is if there are bans going to happen or they have happened, we need the information available to the farmers as soon as possible. Farmers need to be made aware that bans are coming possibly 3 to 6 months before the ban actually happens, because then that allows the farmer to then cover what is going to be banned and be able to cover the production of what they were normally importing from overseas or from South Africa. This is our nursery. This is the early phase of the fingerling production for fish. This system here holds about 25,000 fish at full capacity. This is the first phase of their growth. So they'll come from hatching from their eggs into here. They'll be in here for about 2 to 3 weeks. They get fed a particular number of times each day depending on their size. Maximum number of feeds per day is about 15 feeds a day. We use 2 different types of feed in here. We use a feed that we grow ourselves, which is a plant called duckweed, and we use a very fine milled feed as well that is very high in protein. The reason that we put them in here first is it's easier to monitor them and have a controlled environment for them to grow up in. From this phase they start about 2 days after they hatch in here, and then they go into the rest of our bigger nursery, which holds up to about 40,000 fingerlings at a time, 50,000 fingerlings. This stage is anywhere from 2 millimeters in size to 5 millimeters in size, and then they'll move on to our bigger hatchery, our bigger nursery. The reason that we've put them in here is we can control the temperature better, we can control the light better for the fish, we can control how much feed they're getting, we can control the oxygen levels in here a lot better. Our whole system is designed off of a flow-through system, so that means that all of our water starts in one point, goes through each system, and as it goes through each system it picks up nutrients and then continues on to our irrigation tank, which then goes on to our vegetables. So with this we're running a a modified aquaponics system. Instead of recycling our water like you would in a traditional aquaponic system, I want to say waste, but we don't waste it. We use it on our vegetables to increase the nutrients that the vegetables are getting from the fish and lower the requirements of nutrients to put into our vegetables. The fingerlings, the fry that are currently in here is a crossbreed species. We have crossed Mozambicus, Nile and 3-spot tilapia together to make a hardier fish. It changes its food very easily without too much waiting. It also has a very nice body shape and final growth stages, and has a nice fillet size as well. You're getting about 50% to 60% of your total mass of your slaughtered fish in meat, in fillet. So that makes it a very nice fish for farmers to grow, because they're getting at least a decent amount of product off of the fish in the final stages. In here we run an oxygenator, an air pump, just to increase the level of oxygen in this early stage, because they have such heavy requirements. Once they get into the later stages of their life, we don't use air pumps, we use air venturis, which is a non-mechanical aerator for your water. We find that using a non-mechanical system allows us and farmers who are starting systems out in rural areas to be able to have a thing that doesn't break down often, and they don't have to do lots of maintenance on their systems all the time. The system that we've designed over the past 6 years is mainly focused on simplicity. We don't want complicated systems running, because complicated systems can go wrong, and when they go wrong, then you have large problems happening. So our system is designed to be as easy to use and as safe as possible for our fish, and the main focus on making it easier is less mechanical systems. Okay, so the advantages of aquaponics in farming is you get more nutrients from your fish. You have lower requirements of nitrates and stuff like that on your vegetable side, because your fish are producing nitrates and stuff in your water, and then you're using that water and you're transporting it onto your vegetables. You find about a 20% reduction in your nitrogen requirements if you're using wastewater from your aquaponic systems or aquaculture systems. And in today's current market, it is quite important to look at ways of saving money on your growth of your vegetables. A lot of farmers find that the costs of fertilizers are too high. So by including a system like this into their production of vegetables, that allows them to reduce the costs that they're having to put into their vegetable production. We have found about a 50% reduction in total nutrients required for our vegetables from our fish, whether that be from the nitrate, the nitrogen levels, or the magnesium that is coming through, or the calcium and all of that that's coming through as well. Another thing we find as well is that you get a lot of microorganisms that get transported through, and those microorganisms also assist in the growth of the vegetables. So this system, we find that this system included with a few other systems, what you're looking for is you're wanting to try and be as integrated as possible. So you want to integrate as many different types of horticulture, agriculture into your system. So like we keep pigs for waste product from our vegetables, and then that allows us to sell pigs when they are ready for slaughter. We keep fish. They reduce certain things on our system. We keep chickens as well to help with the system too. And including all of those things together allows us to have a much more stable form of income throughout the whole process. It also allows us to bring in various forms of income from one property. It allows us to then produce multiple types of protein. It also controls on the pests of the farm and the vegetables, because we're getting rid of them much more economically by feeding them to a secondary processor. So like pigs or cattle, if they eat all of your waste products that has diseases or whatever, then you'll find that they actually destroy nearly the entire batch of disease or pest that you have in that crop. So it makes it a much more sustainable and safe environment for your plants to grow in. The big thing with fish when you're doing fish is you want to have a nice clean water source for them. So we're running borehole water through our systems. The water is sitting at about 6 to 7 pH, which is a very stable pH. It's there in the mid-range. We're also sitting at about 1,000 to 1,500 parts per million of salt in the water. So our EC reading is about 1,000 to 1,500 parts per million. You need to be monitoring your system regularly. So like here we do pH and EC tests of our water at least 3 times a day. That allows us to monitor and adjust the water as it needs to be adjusted. We can add salt and various other things to adjust the pH of the water and the EC of the water. It also allows us, because these systems are so confined, you can actually keep a better eye on your fish and notice disease and bacteria coming through a lot faster, so you can treat it faster. We use 2 main forms of treatment for most of our diseases and bacteria that we get for our fish. Those 2 are sea salt and hydrogen peroxide. Yeah. So we found that those 2 things are the key things for treating most of your diseases and bacteria that you can get that infect fish. Hydrogen peroxide also is very good for increasing your oxygen level in your water. When you look at doing fish, you'll often find a product called liquid oxygen, and it is hydrogen peroxide just sold under a different name. What it does is it releases the excess oxygen atoms that it has, and then those excess oxygen atoms spread through the water a lot and allow us to have a much more controlled and higher oxygen levels in our tanks. Here. Yeah, I think they're in the corner here. So this isn't the big one, but come on. So yeah, this is the sharp-toothed catfish. So you'll actually see inside the mouth here. So inside the mouth, let me just pop it again. She's got 2 rows of very sharp teeth there, and that's where they get their name from, the sharp-toothed catfish. And yeah, they eat everything, eh? And so when your tanks dry, or when your earthen dams and stuff dry out, they'll bury themselves in the mud, and they can live like that for 6 months to a year with no water. A big catfish in the wild, if they get onto dry land, they can survive up to 12 hours without any water as well. That's why, like, when you catch catfish and stuff in your dams and stuff, you put them to the side and you watch them walk to the water, actually wiggle themselves back into the water, and that is them. They can do that so that they can move water systems when they start drying out as well. Yeah. So yeah, our main focus at the moment is on tilapia, which is, we put about 40,000 in here. There's about capacity for about 40,000 tilapia in these tanks in here. We only grow them here to about 2 inches max size. Then they go out to grow out farmers and stuff, or if they don't go from there, we will supply into our local water systems as well, to local dams like Tamaga, Mashupa Dam. We'll put in some fish there for the local people to be able to harvest fish when they want to for a food source. Catfish, we do breeding, but it is only on specific orders for large quantities, whereas the tilapia, we do it throughout the year. The catfish produce between 750 and 1.2 million eggs depending on their size. Tilapia produce between 250 and 1,000 eggs at any point. Tilapia do 4 hatchings a year. They'll produce eggs 4 times a year if you're harvesting the eggs for fingerlings, and catfish will only do it once to twice a year. Yeah. When you're looking in this system here, all of our water flows through, all flows in here, and then it flows out of here into another tank for, from there it will go on to our irrigation systems. What we found is you get a little bit more nutrient out of the catfish that you do out of the tilapia. The nutrient difference is about 10%. You get about 10% more nutrient off of your catfish than you do off of your tilapia. The growth rate of the two is very different. The tilapia has a slower growth rate, and it also has a higher FCR. Your FCR is your food conversion ratio. So that food conversion ratio is how much feed it requires to make 1 kilo of mass. So tilapia's food conversion ratio is between 1.2 to 1.6. So that means it takes 1.2 to 1.6 kilos of feed to make 1 kilo of mass on a tilapia. On catfish, you're looking at a FCR of between 0.7 to 1.1. So it takes anywhere between 700 grams to 1.1 kgs of feed to make 1 kilo of mass on a catfish. Your catfish will grow slightly faster, 6 months from fingerling, which is 2 to 3 inches long. 6 months until they slaughter size at about 850 grams. Your tilapia, you're looking at between 6 to 8 months depending on your conditions and stuff, and you will be slaughtering them at about 600 to 500 grams, around about there. The big thing with the fish is clean water. Your water has to stay clean as often as possible. When you have contaminants come into your water, then they start dying. Then they get gill infections, or they get sores on their bodies and stuff like that. It's very easy to treat, but it's better if you do preventative measures rather than trying to treat the issue when it comes. Most of their treatments are very simple. It's mostly sea salt or hydrogen peroxide, and that's what treats 90% of the issues that you will come across with them.